something about a billboard or something if they didn't do right? What was it you told them? Do you remember?
I told them that we would buy billboards across the Metroplex, and we'll put their names up and put the word betrayed right next to their name.
You know what? That's a minister that's out of the box, and that's what we need. Pastor Broden.
Hello, fellow patriots. It is good to be with you on this day, the day that we stand up in recognition that our nation is in distress. We're here today not because of the pleasantries of the weather or it's good for us to assemble, but rather we're here as a testimony that something is awry in our nation's capital. And we who have a stewardship responsibility to protect the God-given liberties that have been handed down to us must step to the platform, and we must take control of this situation. For control in Washington is defined as out of control. Thomas Jefferson said to us that God who gave us liberty, gave us life. Can that liberty and life of a nation be served or secure when we have removed a connection and conviction that these liberties are a gift from God? Any cursory evaluation, I'm gonna wait till that pass. Thank you very much, Fire Department. We need to pray for wherever they're going. Any cursory review of our nation's history will reveal that our founding fathers believed God was central to our freedoms and the source of liberty for all of mankind. Amen. They understood that in order for our republic to work, civic virtue had to govern relationships, and civility was, in their judgment, connected to private virtue of the individual. Most of us get our definition of virtue from our religious teaching and training. John Adams said this: our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate to the governance of any other. I want you to underscore in that sentence, he said it was only made for a moral people. That's right. Men and women, Judeo-Christian heritage no longer is the predominant idea or philosophy in the public square. We have replaced it with human secularism, and it is driving the issues within the public square. We are filtering our reality through a human secular philosophy. We need to know what it is that is happening in our culture today. John Kennedy said this in his inaugural address, and I think it's applicable even today. He said, with a good conscience, our only secure or sure reward, with history, the final judge of our deeds, let us go forth to lead the land we love, asking his blessing and his help, but knowing here on earth, God's work must truly be our own. Men and women, our families, our communities are in the crosshairs of those who would define us no longer as a Judeo-Christian nation, who would define us as a human secular culture influenced by socialism, Marxism, communism, and yes, men and women, Darwinism. All of these ideologies have been created by men who hate God. Men who hate God. As communities, we must resist their definition and stand in the spirit of 1776. And upon the Constitution, our Constitution, history declares America was founded on a religious-based heritage of liberty under law. And our duty, our responsibility, is to maintain and fight for those liberties against all who would rob us of God-given unalienable rights. One of our challenges today, men and women, is to connect the dots. To connect the dots. the question that we must ask, where are we in God's economy, and where are we relative to the liberties that God has given to us? These are the questions that must be asked, because when we ask those questions, we can make the appropriate adjustment to our actions and activities to counter what we know to be true. And part of what we're doing here today is providing information, education, and activation. Information asks and answers the question, what in the world is going on? We need to ask that question. What's happening to us as a nation? Education asks and answers the question, why is this happening? There has been a dereliction on the part of we, the people, in our stewardship responsibility to protect these liberties. Once we know what and the why, then our activation can be targeted and specific to accomplish the goals that are required to rescue this republic. Connection of the dots. Men and women, we have witnessed a slow but gradual, incremental attack against our Constitution. The one thing that stands between what they want and where we are is the Constitution. It is a protection of our individual liberties. And if it goes, we go. NDAA, National Defense Authorization Act, violates the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th Amendments to the Constitution. The Patriot Act gives the intelligence and law enforcement sovereignty over our private rights to search and to surveil us at any time. The FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration Act, authorized drone use in our national space. Our communities, drones are flying over us now. What is that but a violation of our constitutional rights? Eligibility of the President of the United States. Congress failed in their constitutional duty to be responsible for vetting our presidential candidates. They have a constitutional duty to do so. We have a president that has not been vetted, and we don't know where he comes from, who he is, and if he is indeed a citizen of the United States, even today. They have failed us. Number 5, the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act, Obamacare. Congress failed to challenge the requirement of a tax and the Supreme Court's decision on individual mandate. Justice Roberts went beyond the duties specified in the Constitution for the Supreme Court. He was not supposed to determine whether it is a tax or not. He was to determine whether it was constitutional or not.
That's right.
And
That's
Congress should have stood up and said, Mr. Roberts, you have gone beyond the Constitution.
That's right.
We nullify your decision.
Yes.
And if you don't like that, we will impeach you. And Congress has a right to impeach the Supreme Court justices.
That's right.
And
Yeah.
they're sitting back thinking, oh, they're appointed for life. They're not appointed for life. They are not. Go back and read the Constitution again. Look at what Thomas Jefferson did with the Supreme Court. We need to connect the dots. Fast and Furious, unconstitutional. Benghazi, unconstitutional. AP scandal, unconstitutional. IRS scandal, unconstitutional. Fox News and James Rosen, unconstitutional. NSA, unconstitutional. Connect the dots. And I submit to you, if we do not stand up and push back on them, we have already lost our liberties.
That's right. That's right.
We are in a moment of soft tyranny. And Mark Levin says this: soft tyranny will always turn into hard tyranny.
Right.
We're one crisis away from seeing hard tyranny. You know, right now there are small businesses that are being attacked by the IRS with guns blazing and going into their offices and taking all their papers and shutting them down. That's tyranny. That's tyranny. Let me ask you a question. Many of us who are here today are Christians, and we have been involved in what is called a cultural war. Let me ask you a question. How's the war going? There are 5 issues that are on the table that determine what the war is all about. Abortion, euthanasia, embryonic stem cell research, human cloning, and the redefinition of marriage. In America, abortion is legal. 55 million babies are being murdered, have been murdered in America already. Euthanasia is inside Obamacare, where they are determining who gets medical treatment by an IPAB, Independent Panel Advisory Board, appointed by I don't know who and accountable to no one, who will define who gets medical care based upon economic viability. That sounds Hitler-esque. Embryonic stem cell research, creating babies in a petri dish, killing them and taking their stem cells and putting them into our food. Pepsi-Cola, Kraft Foods, Nestle's Corporation are sponsoring and funding through Sinomex. Look it up on Google it and find out. For them to take stem cells and to use the stem cells from babies from their kidneys to make artificial flavoring. You're drinking dead babies in your Pepsi and in your Nestle's chocolate. We've lost that. Human cloning. 3 weeks ago, they successfully cloned a human being in America. And they're creating the baby in the petri dish and killing it and taking from it what they need to produce whatever they want. We've lost that. Last week, the Supreme Court said that God's definition of marriage doesn't matter, that we define marriage. And they have defined marriage between a man and a man and a woman and a woman. And as they celebrated their victory on the Supreme Court stage or steps, they said this: we did this for the children. We did this for the children. They repeated it almost 6 times. We did this for the children. What are you doing for the children but producing perversion in their minds and confusing them as to what is real and what is not? The cultural war, men and women, has been lost. We need to do something and to do it quick. This moment demands action and activity from you that goes beyond the usual. You must get up, take to the streets, stand in the streets, slow traffic down, go to this corner and walk across the corner with your signs 1 step at a time in order to make the traffic come to a stop, and let the sign say, we demand protection of our Constitution. John Wiley Price did it. You remember that, don't you? We slowed traffic down and made traffic back up all over this city to make his point. And here we are talking about we must be good citizens. The time for good citizens need to be redefined. And we define it now as actions or moving in the spirit of 1776. And the spirit of 1776, what was that spirit? It was the spirit of resistance. It was the spirit of revolt. It was the spirit of revolution. We must are in America today.